Hi, I'm Dave Sivers, and I'm going to read you Chapter 2 of In Flames. That's Book 3 in my Detective Inspector Nathan Quarrel series. So here we go. Chapter 2. Not for the first time, Detective Sergeant Katie Gray reminded herself that she should change the ringtone on her phone. Killing Joke's Love Like Blood was still one of her favourite tracks, but not when she only just got up. She'd been heading for the shower, and the phone was still by the bed. She scurried to get it. John stirred. "What?" "Sorry," she mumbled, stabbing the accept call button as she read the name on the screen. Her boss, Detective Inspector Nathan Quarrel. "What was the time?" "Nate," she said. "Not yet 8 a.m." It had been relatively quiet at the station this week, so he told her not to worry about arriving at stupid o'clock. "Good morning." He sounded more alert than she felt. "Morning," she replied. "You did say not to rush in." "Yeah, sorry about this. Dead people, eh? What are they like? No consideration." "Hang on." She mouthed another apology to John and walked naked out of the room, closing the door behind her. She hoped Nate hadn't heard her boyfriend's appreciative wolf whistle. "There's a body," she said. "Afraid so. At Jimmy Steele's place." A jolt of shock went through her. "Jimmy? Is he okay?" She'd only met him a couple of times on a previous case, but she was a big fan of his music. "He's fine. So's Anthea. But we need to get over there. I'll fill you in when I see you." "I'll come straight away," she said. "Where are you?" "On my way. Uniforms are already there securing the scene, and I've asked for Debbie and the doc." Debbie Brown was the Crown scene manager, and the doc was Dr. Jordan Stoddart, a pathologist. She did a quick mental calculation. "I can be there in less than half an hour." She lived in Berkhamsted, Nate in the hamlet of Dudswell. The difference in journey time to Little Gadsden was marginal, but it sounded like he had a head start on her. "Don't bust a gut," he said. "I don't think this one's going anywhere." "Is it a nasty one?" She'd learned to control her squeamishness to some extent over the years, but gruesome scenes still caused her stomach to roil. It wasn't a great look for a murder detective. "It certainly sounds that way. See you there." He cut the call, and Katie went back into the bedroom, where John, propped up on one elbow, gave her a look she was beginning to know well. "I was thinking," he said. "Now we're both wide awake." "Sorry," she said. "Duty calls." "Not even a quickie?" "My boss knows where I live and how long it'll take me to get there. Plus, if you were that quick, that'd be a little embarrassing all round." He looked a bit put up, but didn't push it. She started pulling out underwear out of drawers. "So what is it?" he asked. "Something juicy?" She stopped, sighed, turned to face him. "Look, this isn't a lecture, but if you'd seen what I have, that wouldn't be the word that sprang to mind." He held his hands up. "Sorry, I've not dated a detective before, or any sort of cop. You did tell me it can get a bit grim. We often see people on the worst days of their lives." She stepped into her knickers. "We do indulge in a bit of gallows humour sometimes. We'd all be in therapy if we didn't find ways of lightening the mood. But yeah, grim. Got it. Sorry." She finished fastening her bra and took a white shirt out of the wardrobe. She'd not been seeing him for long. This was only the second time he'd stayed over, and she was a long way from convinced it was going anywhere. But he'd lasted longer than anyone else since she'd started dating again, and she'd encountered far worse personalities, to say nothing of far worse sex. "Like I said, I didn't mean to lecture you." She buttoned the blouse and selected a dark trouser suit. She had three, which she rotated. "So can you say anything about the case?" "No, I don't know much myself yet. Best I don't say anything for now." "I can keep stum, you know. I'm sure. She finished doing up her trousers, slipped her jacket on and gave her hair a quick brush. Will I do? Stunning. I bet you say that to all the girls. It's true. She laughed and kissed him. Let yourself out, yes? I think I can manage that. Downstairs, she paused to pour and gulp down a glass of milk and grab a cereal bar from the cupboard. Then she was on her way, wondering what exactly she'd find at Jimmy Steele's home. It was no secret that she was an ex-goth, although her interest had always been more about the clothes and the music than the darker side of it, which was in any case much overstated in her opinion. She'd been more than a little starstruck when she met Jimmy for the first time, although she'd found him pretty normal for a rock star. More recently, though, his wife, Anthea Swallow, had had her troubles splashed all over the tabloids. Now this. She wondered if it was connected. D.I. Nathan Quarrel cut his engine and sighed. The sleek, dark blue Alfa Romeo saloon was a looker all right, and drove like a dream, but he was still struggling to get used to it. The thought flashed through his mind that a dead body turning up in Little Gadsden might be about to scupper his plans for the weekend. It wouldn't be the first time the job had got in the way. It would be his mother's birthday on Saturday. Things had been quiet at work when they'd invited her for the weekend, and he was supposed to be booking somewhere for lunch. It was important to both of them. For most of Nate's life, they'd been estranged, but there had been a reconciliation of sorts a couple of years ago. He told himself that since then both had been trying hard to build a relationship at last, but things remained somewhat awkward and stilted, and the demands of the job had limited their meetings. At least he told himself that, although part of him knew it was too easy an excuse. It was true that a horrendous county lines case had consumed him for both Christmas and her birthday that first year, and he'd drawn the short straw on the last Christmas roster, although he and his partner Laura had at least been able to spend some time with her on Boxing Day. It had looked as if this birthday get-together might actually happen, and he really had been determined to make the most of it. A new beginning. If this case could be cleared up quickly, it could still happen. He told himself he'd make time to research restaurants, make that booking, and sort out a card and present. Surely he could carve out an hour somewhere in his day. Sighing, he got out of the car and approached the uniformed constable who stood by the crime scene tape. She nodded, recognizing him. Sir? He looked over her shoulder. I see the CSIs are here already. I'll get suited up and join them. I'll need to speak to the homeowners afterwards. I take it they're around. I think Miss Swallow's lying down. I don't think she actually saw the body, but she's still pretty shaken. Things like that on your doorstep. She shook her head. Well, no rush for the moment, but we can't put it off for too long. He went back to the car and retrieved his crime scene suit from the boot. After he slipped it on, the constable lifted the tape for him to duck under, and he moved towards the similarly attired crime scene investigators, picking out Debbie Brown from the rest. Nice car, she remarked. He nodded. Yeah. I sense a but. I don't know. All the bells and whistles feel too much like a backseat driver for my liking. I miss the Volvo. I thought it kept letting you down, said Debbie. Once too many, he admitted. I can't trust the old girl for work anymore. His still beloved but ancient car sat under tarpaulin on his drive until he could find a lock-up garage for it. He still intended to use it on weekends, maybe holidays. Anyway, he changed the subject. What have we got? It's a weird one, she told him. It seems the lady at the house, Anthea Swallow, was up and about when someone rang the doorbell around 7 a.m. She saw what she thought was a pretty big parcel just outside the gates, so she roused her husband to bring it in. Turns out it was a body bag, complete with body. Male or female? Buggered if I know, Nate. Whoever it was, they're burned to a crisp and in danger of falling to bits. The best I can say is at least what remains we have are contained in the bag, all ready for Dr. Stoddard to transport to the lab. If we had to scrape them off the tarmac, that'd be challenging and messing. Understood. So what are you able to tell me at the moment? She blinked. I'm afraid that's pretty well it. We're dusting the bag for prints and checking for shoe marks and tyre tracks, but it's been dry, so we're not holding our breath for much. There's CCTV apparently, and that might be your best bet. I wouldn't imagine whoever dumped the body transported it here on foot, so maybe the vehicle and its reg number have been captured. If you get really lucky, you'll see the dumper's face or faces, maybe more than one. I'll ask for it. Mr. Steele said he'd send it over if you told him where, but he's a bit preoccupied with his wife right now. Poor woman. She's not had the easiest of times lately, has she? No, he agreed, she hasn't. Well, be prepared for a tirade about lack of police engagement with her problems. Her husband seems to think dumping a body on their doorstep is an escalation of the harassment she's been enduring, and he's pretty pissed off. Can't blame him for that, I'd probably be the same. A few months ago, Anthea Swallow had become a victim of the practice of deep faking, using digitally manipulated media to convincingly replace one person's likeness with another's. In Anthea's case, the pornographic videos in which she appeared to feature have been blasted all over the internet, accompanied by equally convincing text declaring what she'd like done to her and what she'd like to do to men, all with the apparent promise that she'd be delighted to do it with literally anyone. The videos still flooded the web, and they had triggered a torrent of online abuse, ranging from slut-shaming to graphic descriptions of the kind of sexual encounter the posters would have with her. There have been letters too, including death threats and rape threats, and her mobile number had also been exposed, leading to lewd and sometimes threatening calls. Anthea had made one attempt at engaging with the renewed public interest in her, bravely or foolishly, speaking about her experiences on the BBC's Woman's Hour. And commentators agreed that the whole thing was clearly taking a toll on her mental and physical health. It hadn't made much difference to the feeding frenzy. The videos were not Nate's case, but he knew that to date all attempts to identify the perpetrator, or at least shut them down, had failed miserably. Whoever it was appeared to be incredibly tech-savvy and fast on their feet, constantly closing social media accounts and opening new ones, and using sophisticated know-how to avoid detection. It wasn't for want of trying, but Nate appreciated that a victim or a loved one would see the failure as lack of interest or lack of effort. A familiar car pulled into the drive and Dr. Stoddart emerged. He looked as ridiculously young for his job as he had about 4 years ago when he first taken up the role. He waved and started to suit up. Moments later, Katie Gray's Mini appeared, and within a few more minutes, Nate, Debbie, Jordan and Katie formed a little gaggle within the crime scene tape. Debbie updated the latter two and Nate saw his DS Blanche. Shall we get this over with? He suggested. It doesn't sound as if we'll be any wiser for seeing it, but I do like to view a body in situ. Wonderful, Katie said through gritted teeth. They trooped over to where a black body bag lay, shielded by a screen from the gaze of passers-by. CSIs were photographing, measuring and scanning their surroundings for clues, but they stopped what they were doing as the four approached. Debbie had a brief conversation with one of them and then indicated the near side of the bag. We can go there now without compromising the scene, she said. They've done what they need to. They moved into the safe area. The bag had been zipped up. I'll do the honours, Jordan said, and he unzipped it. Nate heard Katie gasp. You okay? He asked her. It was a long time since she'd thrown up at a scene, but the charred remains were an especially grisly sight. Even Nate fancied he could smell cooked meat, although he suspected this was only in his mind. Yeah, she said, but poor bastard. Hands behind the back, he said, most likely they'd been restrained. Fully clothed by the look of it, remarked Jordan. Impossible to say exactly what they were wearing, but it's going to be fun removing them, especially anything synthetic that will be welded to the body. Any immediate impressions? Nate asked. Apart from the obvious, no, I'd say they were liberally doused with accelerant and set alight. Like you say, restraints, so most probably nothing they could do but burn. Is it possible they were dead before they were set on fire? I'll be able to tell you quite a bit once I start doing a proper examination, but it'll be mostly guesswork with the body in the bag, and this is not the place to take it out. Once it's out of the bag, we might be able to find some clues to their identity, Debbie added. We're going to have to work with you at the mortuary, Doc. No problem with that, obviously. For what it's worth, I'd say that even if they were alive when the fire started, smoke inhalation would have curtailed the agony within minutes, although they likely feel like very long minutes. Nate suppressed a shudder. It was unimaginable. Except for him, that wasn't quite true. His partner, Laura, was part of the frontline fire service. She seemed to handle the everyday trauma of the job pretty well, but sometimes the things she saw were too much even for her to hold in. So even though he tried, he couldn't stop his imagination from imprinting horrors on his brain. The stench of petrol in the nostrils, the acrid taste in the throat, the eyes stinging and blinded by tears from the fumes. Probably petrol actually in the eyes, the feeling of being helpless, defenseless, hopeless. Then the burning. As so often with violent crimes, he felt the familiar anger starting inside him. No matter how hard he tried not to, he invariably took it almost personally. He reached for a focus. What had the killer used to ignite the fuel? A match? A lighter? Had they known enough to stand well back from the victim before creating a spark or a flame? Or was the killer nursing burns of their own? He nodded grimly. Okay, well, there's nothing useful Katie and I can do over here, so we'll go and talk to Jimmy, Steele and Anthea, if she's up to it.